Can you actually acquire the database of another real estate agent? Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is not often discussed, but needs to be. It is literally one of the greatest opportunities of our time. Let me put it into context. There are $10 trillion worth of assets that are changing hands between baby boomers and the next generations. And many of those dollars are in businesses. You see, if you don't acquire the business is just going to dissipate. And that agent that worked so long and so hard to build that business will get nothing for it. And you will be starting from scratch. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about what you should be looking for before you acquire the database of another real estate agent. Now, maybe it's a real estate agent who is looking to be done, like take the keys and go, please take this business for me, right? Whereas others might be like, I just want to slow down a little bit. I just want to work with a very small group of people and you can have the rest. For others, it's like, over the next couple of years, I want to move closer to grandkids or closer to where it's sunnier weather. And I want to start that transition process now. Whatever that looks like, I'm telling you, the opportunity is bigger than you think. Now, here's the deal. While acquisitions may very well be the greatest opportunity of our time, there are some red lights that should cause you to stomp on the brake and say, no way am I going to acquire that database. And at the same time, there are some green lights where you should be charging forward at full speed. So we're going to talk about both of those. And I'm going to share with you what I believe to be probably the most important factor that will create success for you as you begin to employ this roll-up strategy, rolling up other businesses into yours and growing through a quantum leap strategy, growing through multiplication, no longer just through addition. All right, first and foremost, alignment is everything. And I want to put it in terms of maybe dating. If you were looking for a life partner, someone to spend the rest of your life with, you probably want to know some things about alignment. For example, do you want children? Do you not have children? Do you want to live in this part of the world or that part of the world, right? Do you want to go to church, not go to church? Like some of these things are really important. And if you don't discuss them up front, the reality is you're going to run into some problems down the road. The same is true of acquiring a database of another real estate agent or other professional if you're in a different industry. But you need to be sure that there is alignment. So the first kind of alignment is demographic alignment. In other words, are the clients that you serve the same as the clients in the database that you want to acquire? Because if you're really focused on creating a client experience that's designed really for first-time home buyers, for example, and that you want to acquire the database of luxury clients, the two aren't going to go together. Your client experience is not set up for that. Neither is your business, right? Luxury properties oftentimes take more time. They oftentimes take more marketing dollars, right? There's things that you maybe aren't prepared for, and the clients are used to a different level of experience. And so if you don't have the right demographic alignment, there's going to be some issues, regardless of how enticing it is. Like, oh my gosh, I would love to have that price point in my business. Just beware is that you might be setting yourself up for more trouble than you think. The next is geographic alignment. Do you work in an area that is the same as the database that you're acquiring? Or at least do you have someone on your team that can service that at the same level? If not, you're very quickly going to realize that you cannot serve those clients at the same level that they've been served, and you will have purchased nothing, is the important thing to realize. Is that you want to be sure that what you purchase actually returns value for you. And again, it might be enticing, it might be sexy, it might be interesting to be like, oh, that'd be amazing to grow my business at that level. But are you willing to pay the price to be in that area? Or even better, are you already in that area? Do you already work in that area? Is this a professional that's already overlaps the area you work in? If so, awesome, that's perfect. And the third area of alignment is cadence of care. Let's say, for example, that you have a system in place to reach out to each one of your clients twice per year. Have a consultative conversation with them, and they've grown to appreciate that and love that. And then you acquire the database of another professional whose clients expect quarterly care. And not only quarterly care, but even they expect you to drop by a nice little gift that oftentimes is referred to as a pop by, right? And personal notes. And they're used to something different. It doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It just means that it's different. And especially when you're acquiring another database, you want to be sure that you have something that's very similar. And probably what you ought to do is identify which of the two is greater and standardize that. Because people will rarely complain about having more care, but they'll probably complain, not really complain, they'll just dismiss you and go somewhere else if they get less care. So be sure that there's alignment, again, when it comes to your cadence of care. Now, after alignment, the next thing that we want to talk about is your systems and your capacity. Let's say, for example, you find a business that you want to acquire, and you're like, hey, everything fits, right? We're aligned when it comes to cadence of care. We're aligned when it comes to demographics. We're aligned when it comes to geographics. I think this is the right fit. Well, many downplay what it takes to actually do an acquisition correctly. The additional work and systems, the additional effort that it's going to be to actually not just acquire that passively, but to acquire that actively, to actually have that particular database create a return. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, can my systems handle it? Let's say, for example, that you have a client database of 300 and you acquire the database of somebody who has 250 in their database. You have to go back to your cadence of care. What is the standard that we're gonna spread across all these clients? Everybody's gonna get this experience, and then ask yourself, do I have the systems right now, the CRM, right, the tools, the people, and the systems in order to be able to support this? And if not, then you probably need to retool. Have maybe a better CRM, a better system. You probably need to have maybe some people to help with that. I know many that are acquiring businesses through the ProInsight platform are thinking that they're actually acquiring a business and giving that business to a teammate. They're responsible for that, right? It's a great way to attract new agents into your life. It's a great way to grow your business without necessarily stressing your own personal systems and your own personal capacities. Because the thing that you want to be aware of is that it's not just the missed opportunities within the new database or your existing database, but it's the potential brand damage of taking on too much and not having the systems, the people, the tools in place to be able to properly support that, right? So I don't want to scare you off. I just want you to come in with your eyes open to realize that we need to be very careful as we're making this move forward to be sure that we've thought through what we're going to need to be able to support this new opportunity. Now, we've been asked before, what is the ideal growth? In other words, how big of a database should I be looking for? And really, ideally is between 30 to 50%. So let's say you have a database currently, client database of 500. If you were to add another 250, right, that'd be 50%, you should be able to do that without too much duress. But when you go beyond that, you might need to staff up. You might need to really revamp your systems. And that's just a good rule of thumb that you should look at as a way to determine what size of business should I be looking for. All right, so when it comes to green lights, in other words, you want to hit the gas pedal, let's talk about some of the things that you should be looking for that should make you want to say, let's roll, let's do this. So first and foremost, we already talked about this a little bit, but aligned client experiences. In other words, you have the same kind of clients in the same area, and you recognize that you aren't going to have to retool yourself. It's one thing to retool your systems, but if you have to retool yourself, that's a different ballgame. So if you find somebody who's been serving your clients in your area with a very similar cadence of care, green light. Another is compatible values and service. In other words, if you've worked with another professional and you know that they put their client first, they really look out for their client, they go above and beyond for their client, and you do the same, then that's probably a pretty good indicator that this is a green light, that your clients have already grown to expect that from you, and their clients have grown to expect that from them. Therefore, it's going to be a pretty easy transition. Green light. Another green light. Regular contact has been made and maintained from the other agent. Oftentimes when people say, I want to sell my database, it's a lead list. And as we look into it a little bit deeper, there aren't really transferable relationships. I've actually had a conversation with a friend of mine, Shelly, who actually not only did she not have a good experience with converting people, she actually had people mad at her. She was calling the database of somebody, and it was not a client database. It was a leads list, and these people had no idea who this person was. And so it's important for you to recognize that you need to actually be aligned in knowing what you're buying, that it's actually a list of relationships of people who are eager to talk to you because their preferred real estate agent is now retiring, and you are the one that's been endorsed. When you're in that kind of situation, that's a green light. And I'll reiterate this one more time so that it's super clear. If it's the right size, if it's actually manageable, right? Definitely if it's below 30%, you probably won't skip a beat, right? But if by chance it's in that 30 to 50% range, another green light, this is probably a great acquisition. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go for businesses that double the size of yours, but you definitely should not do that thinking that you're not going to feel it or that your existing systems will work the same, because they probably won't. So it's okay to do that, and it's okay to even call that a green light if everything else is a fit, but you just need to come in with eyes open that you might need to ramp up some of the support to be able to really take advantage of that opportunity. Now, you can probably guess some of these red flags. Different demographics, I shared some of those before, red light. Different geographic, again, red light. And the list is cold. In other words, when was the last time the agent that's selling you this business actually had conversations? Not sent them a drip email, right? But when was the last time they actually had a conversation of care with that particular client? If it's been forever, guess what? You are buying blue sky. You need to actually have relationships that are willing to transfer, because that previous agent had such a good relationship that they were willing to endorse you, and the client was willing to follow that endorsement. Now, the last component that I want to share with you that will make or break an acquisition is timing. You see, timing in business is everything. It's critical, and nothing could be more truer than with acquisitions. Timing is so important because, for example, if you have a professional who says that they want to retire, but their heart really hasn't given it up yet, and they won't actually follow the steps to transition the business to you, and they keep meddling, it's kind of like a mother-in-law who keeps meddling in a marriage. Like, it's not good for it, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be involved. They absolutely should, but in the right ways. They should not be micromanaging the business in the hands of the new agent. Right? They should now step into the follower seat, is that they're going to be a support to be sure that that business properly transfers. So how do you find out if someone's actually ready? It's really having a conversation with them and getting a feel for where they're at. And when I say a feel, I do mean a feel. They can say all the right things, but if you can feel that they're not ready, or that maybe the time to be ready is already gone and they just want to hand you the keys and be done, the reality is that's going to be a really tough acquisition for you, because you need their cooperation over a certain period of time to be sure that those relationships transfer. So it's important that they're not overripe, right? That they're ready, but not too ready, because it will spoil in that way. Now, the other thing to consider is are you ready? Right? Are you ready to actually take on the responsibility now to nurture this larger set of clients? Because if you are, great, right? But if you're not, if your heart's not actually in it, and you're gonna treat them like a stepchild that you never really wanted, right? That's a terrible thing to say, but it's actually true in some situations with some people, right? You get the point, right? Is that if you actually don't want to nurture these relationships, then you're not going to get the value of the relationship. So you got to be sure that you're ready to grow, that you're ready to put in the extra work that it's going to take to get there. Now, here's something really interesting about timing, is that sometimes the professional on the other side doesn't even know that they're ready because they didn't know it was a possibility. Let me give you an example. Stephanie Peck, who's one of the great members on the ProInsight platform, after one of our masterminds in which we were talking about this, it couldn't have been minutes later, but she said, "You're not going to believe this. I just got a phone call from an agent who I compete with here in my local community who said, 'Hey, I'm moving from Oregon to Arizona. I want out. And I know you're kind of the market leader here. I'd love to have you sell my home.'" And our member Stephanie, she replied and said, "Hey, I'd love to. I'm honored. And by the way, why don't we also talk about selling your business? I'd love to acquire your database of clients and pay you on the way out for all the work that you've done in nurturing these relationships." So sometimes timing is there because you suggest it, because there are people who don't realize this is a possibility. And I would say that's one of the biggest opportunities for you right now, is that people don't know that they actually have a marketable product, but now they do. I'll say that the ProInsight platform is really designed to help you do exactly that, to actually diagnose a business and actually to identify if that particular business is worth acquiring and what it might be worth. And if it is worth something, the process to streamline that acquisition and that sale. So here's the bottom line. Buying the database of another professional might very easily be the fastest way to grow. Again, I authored the book, The Upstream Model. You see right over my shoulder here. And of all the upstream partners that you could have, of all the strategic partners that you could have that could offer the most amount of value to your business, I would argue that acquiring the database of another agent who's done a great job nurturing relationships is probably one of the most powerful strategic partnerships that you can have. 300, 500 clients coming into your database right away, warmed up, introduced, edified, in which you're edified. Crazy. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. But if you're not quite ready for it and you don't go back and listen to what I shared about some of the pitfalls, it could overload you and it could even do damage to you. So you got to be careful. But just know that every huge opportunity has some things to be cautious about. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't charge ahead with your eyes open, knowing what you need to do to actually make it a success. So if you're thinking about maybe acquiring a business, or maybe if you're on the other side of like, man, I didn't know there was a market for my business, I'd love to sell it. Put a comment below. We'd love to chat through it, see if there's some way that we can help you. And if this topic has helped you, give it some love and subscribe to the channel. Be sure you hit the bell notification so that we can continue to drop this kind of value on you in the future.